If you keep chasing a shadow, you'll never touch the light. Brené Brown. Have you ever woken up in the middle of the night, heart pounding, only to see your message marked seen with no reply? Have you found yourself asking, is it my fault? Am I loving the wrong way? In today's hectic world, everyone craves a true sense of belonging and genuine connection. Yet every time you open your heart, they retreat. Every time you reach out, they go silent. This push-pull cycle rattles your soul, erodes your confidence, and keeps you tossing and turning in bed. But here's the truth. That game ends now. They can't keep stringing you along because the rules have changed. You're no longer the silent victim. You're the player in control. Their outdated avoidance tactics, dosing you with just enough affection to hook your hope, then vanishing to fuel your despair, are now exposed. Once you understand the script behind their push-pull drama, you'll realize you're not broken. They are avoiding intimacy. In the next few minutes, we'll unravel the secrets behind ghosting and the silent treatment. You'll discover the avoidant mindset, learn to silence the instinct to chase, and master 3 simple steps to flip the power dynamic. After that, you'll stop sleepless nights, end the self-blame, and most importantly, know how to love without losing yourself. If you're tired of the cat and mouse game, sick of empty promises, stay right here. Because from now on, the power shifts back to you. Prepare yourself, because you're about to experience true freedom, the freedom to break the painful cycle and step into a new chapter where love is nurturing, not wounding. The moment you recognize that the warm, cold, push-pull cycle is not random but a deliberately scripted performance, you effectively flip the game. All the old avoidance tactics, from brief bursts of affection followed by sudden withdrawal to prolonged ghosting without explanation, become null and void, unable to manipulate your emotions any longer. Previously, each slow reply, accompanied by a carefully chosen emoji, would lift your spirits, making you believe the relationship was stabilizing, only for them to vanish into silence moments later, plunging you into self-doubt with the question, did I do something wrong? Those fleeting moments of warmth were the bait that cultivated your anxiety and triggered your clingy reflex. But once you realize that behind every scrap of attention lies a sophisticated trap designed to keep you entrapped, you refuse to let yourself be drawn in. Now, you no longer chase after every mood swing, no longer exhaust yourself decoding their online-offline status. Instead, you stand firm in the knowledge that this story no longer belongs to you. In the past, you blamed yourself for not being sensitive or patient enough, but today you see clearly it wasn't your shortcomings, but their rules that were never fair. When they seek closeness, you observe with calm curiosity, but resist the urge to immediately comply. When they withdraw, you redirect your focus to your own life and values, refusing to allow their silence to create a negative void. They may continue their push-pull antics on the other side of the screen, but you have shifted your stance. You have broken free from being hostage to your emotions and now hold the power to decide whether to engage or disengage. Each time they carve out an empty space, you fill it with self-nourishing activities, work, passions, other relationships, so their silence can no longer dictate your state of mind. As a result, the once effective push-pull tactics lose all potency. Power changes hands, and you become the driver, no longer shaken by each sudden warmth or aloof chill. From this point on, the emotional playing field is redefined. You are free to choose your response or to withdraw entirely. And if they wish to maintain the connection, they must play by your rules. Rules that prioritize transparency, consistency, and mutual respect. Following your reversal of the game and refusal to play by the old rules, let's examine in detail how the push-pull cycle operates, the very engine that once controlled your emotions. First comes the warm phase. They offer you just enough attention, perhaps a sweet good morning message, thoughtful check-ins at just the right moment, or an impromptu call that convinces you the connection is real. Your natural reaction is excitement, hope, and a full sense of security. You believe the obstacle has been overcome, that you've captured their heart, But immediately afterward, this is the second stage, they disappear. Ghost mode kicks in, silence reigns, with no sign of communication. You open your phone to see them online, but unanswered. You send another text, only to be met with emptiness. This sudden shift sends your mind spinning from joy to confusion and self-doubt. What did I do wrong? Why did they suddenly withdraw? Avoid and anxiety appear instantly, triggering a reflex to reach out and end the discomfort. It is the repetition of this warm-cold sequence that forms a power-maintaining strategy. Once you become accustomed to feeding on those brief emotional hits, you cannot stand still when they fall silent. You chase after the next warmth to break the unease. Each approach brings happiness, each withdrawal brings fear, and thus they maintain the upper hand without ever investing in deeper commitment. Biologically, each burst of warmth triggers your brain's dopamine system, producing feelings of reward and pleasure. Yet when that reward suddenly vanishes, your brain sinks into a state of deprivation, much like an addiction. That craving compels you to keep chasing, waiting, and ultimately sacrificing both your time and self-worth to recapture the initial high. This cycle traps you in an emotional snare, unable to distinguish genuine love from a power play. When warmth appears, you believe they care. When they vanish, you believe you weren't enough. When warmth returns, you believe you're on the right track. You become enmeshed in a spiral they orchestrate. However, now that you understand the mechanism, you can break the cycle. Don't get stuck waiting. Don't let dopamine dictate your actions. And, most importantly, don't accept any silence as normal. Each time they attempt the warm, cold routine, remember, it's just a step in a worn-out script, and you can choose not to participate. Once you stop chasing unpredictable shifts, the push-pull cycle loses its power and collapses permanently. When you become ensnared in the warm withdraw cycle repeatedly, the psychological impact goes far beyond fleeting sadness, quickly morphing into profound suffering. At first, you may feel only a momentary void, but prolonged silences send your mind spinning with questions like, is this my fault? Or, am I unworthy of more affection? Guilt and fear of rejection gradually replace your innate self-assurance, making you hesitant in every decision, from whether to send another text to voicing your own opinions. Each time they pull away, leaving you in silence, you not only lose the immediate connection, but also erode a bit more of your self-trust. Like an addict, you crave the next dose of warmth. You find yourself anxiously awaiting the smallest sign of safety. You check your phone obsessively, analyze every status indicator, and are willing to sacrifice time and energy just to recapture that rare moment of care. Your brain, once wired to seek intimacy, becomes trapped in a dopamine loop, surging high with each interaction, then crashing when silence descends. This cycle not only induces stress, but gradually turns you into someone you barely recognize, doubting your worth, blaming yourself for things beyond control, and settling for far less emotional reciprocity than you deserve. That dwindling self-confidence carries into new conversations, leaving you rushing to explain yourself, avoiding conflict, and even downplaying your own emotional needs to avoid being too much. You become wary of joy, fearing it will inevitably be replaced by coldness. The question, will they come back, haunts you even as you try to enjoy your personal time or engage socially with friends. Your social life shrinks, and you find yourself less willing to express emotions, explore creativity, or push your boundaries, because any independent step feels like it could trigger the next silence. Recognizing these psychological impacts is the first step toward change. Acknowledging the pain, accepting that emotional deprivation does not reflect your true worth, and understanding that craving the next dose is a survival instinct, not a sign of weakness. Once you map out this emotional addiction loop, you can begin to rebuild confidence, restore trust in yourself, and reclaim psychological control rather than allowing the push-pull cycle to continue its torment. After grasping the painful impact of the push-pull cycle, you must identify the true nature of this game. It is not an expression of genuine love or sincere caring, but a defense strategy often operating unconsciously, that allows the avoidant partner to flee any level of intimacy they cannot or are not ready to handle. Rather than fostering a lasting bond, they use half measures of warmth to lure you close, only to withdraw the moment closeness feels overwhelming, leaving you in a state of panic and craving. Each retreat not only disrupts your immediate connection, but delivers a psychological blow to your self-esteem and faith, prompting you to question, am I good enough? What must I change to keep them from leaving? Because this cycle repeats endlessly. Pain accumulates, and every action you take, whether cautious or wholehearted, is driven by fear of abandonment. They don't need to argue or justify. As long as you keep playing, the game maintains its absolute power. The essence of the game lies in sustaining just enough warmth and coldness to trap you, turning intimacy into a threat and distance into a safety net. Understanding this means you no longer confuse inconsistency with genuine love, nor blame yourself for failing to maintain connection. Instead, you see the cycle for what it is, a sign of avoidance, not a rejection of you as a person of worth. And that realization gives you the foundation to decisively step out of a rigged game. Once you fully grasp that the warm, cold, push-pull cycle isn't love, but a prearranged script, you can decisively invert the power dynamic. First, identify the pattern. Whenever they offer a taste of warmth, only to retreat. Instead of personalizing it or blaming yourself, you see it for the repeated tactic it is. Understanding this frees you from obsessing over what do they really mean, or where did I go wrong, and allows you to recognize that these are not genuine emotions, but control tools. Next, you stop pursuing. You immediately halt the reflex to chase them whenever they disappear no more. Are you okay? Texts or frantic calls demanding, why are you silent? Because you know the more you chase, the more power you hand them. Instead, you invest that time and energy into self-care activities you previously neglected. Simultaneously, you hold your ground. When they create distance, you accept it calmly, without panic or self-deprecation. You understand that their silence or delayed replies are defense mechanisms, not reflections of your worth. Rather than scrambling to regain contact, you allow the space to exist, visibly maintaining your own life, scheduling outings with friends, meeting work deadlines, and tending to your mental and physical health. These actions not only anchor you, but subtly signal that you are not someone to be waited on unconditionally. Finally, and most importantly, you protect your dignity. You prioritize self-respect over scavenging for scraps of affection. If they cannot sustain the minimal level of care you need to feel secure, you assert boundaries or even pause communication. You refuse empty promises or one last chance gambits because genuine care is not something to be demanded. Upholding your dignity shields you from repeated pain and reinforces your belief that you deserve full respect and heartfelt love. By implementing these 4 steps in concert, the power shifts instantly. You become the relationship's orchestrator, and their push-pull tactics are reduced to a harmless script. Ultimately, the most crucial step to reclaiming power is to stop being a partner in the push-pull game. Once you cease chasing every warm rush or scrambling to compensate for their silence, the cycle collapses naturally as if an invisible tether snaps. They'll realize their old tricks, ghosting, half-hearted messages, fleeting promises no longer work, and will have to face the genuine void within themselves without the cloak of emotional illusions. In that moment, power shifts from their hands to yours. You, no longer fearful of silence or emptiness, you transform from a confused victim, losing sleep over where you went wrong, into the master of the game. Now, whenever they attempt to lure you with warmth or test you with cold indifference, you can simply smile and remain focused on your own life. This seemingly small change carries immense strength. You are no longer trapped in the cycle of anxiety. No longer blame yourself, nor concede to scraps of emotion. Over time, they'll understand that to continue the connection, they must play by your rules of clarity, respect, and consistency rather than their tired avoidance maneuvers. Even their silence, when met with your non-reaction, becomes illuminating, It's not a sign of your failure, but a reminder that they aren't ready, and you, now prepared, don't need them, for you've learned to love yourself first. With each passing day, you feel power reflowing, bolstering your poise and self-worth. You reconnect with personal joys, friends, passions, and goals, knowing that your life need not hinge on anyone's unpredictable emotions. When power flips, roles reverse. You're no longer chasing their shadow. You set the rhythm for the relationship. They must now consider every approach, respect the boundaries and values you establish. That's the true collapse of the push-pull cycle and the creation of a secure paradigm, one where love isn't a power struggle, but a sustained, voluntary, and respectful companionship. By mastering your power, you master yourself, marking the beginning of any relationship that truly deserves your heart. Behind every wave of warmth and coldness, the avoidance core psychology stems from a profound fear. Intimacy is dangerous. They don't pull away because you're inadequate or unworthy, but because each time the relationship deepens, their internal alert system rings out. If I open up too much, I will get hurt. This reaction often traces back to childhood wounds, perhaps from neglect, rejection, or betrayal by caregivers, teaching them that deep connection equals unforeseeable risk. The outcome is an unconscious withdrawal reflex. Whenever you approach their safe zone, they retreat, creating a void filled only by the mechanical rhythm of silence. Physiologically, this reflex is tied to the autonomic nervous system. When the intimacy signal fires, the sympathetic response triggers a fight or flight state. Cortisol floods their system. Heart rate spikes, and any sense of closeness registers as threat. Cognitively, they may not understand why. They just feel discomfort rising whenever the relationship takes off. Rather than verbalize their fear, they resort to the only strategy they know: silence, retreat, and distance. Understanding avoidant psychology means recognizing this is not rejection of you, but a survival response crafted for self-protection. Once you grasp this, you can shift from personalizing their behavior to empathizing and setting healthy boundaries for both of you. You might say, I know intimacy can feel overwhelming. I'm willing to slow down so we both feel safe and comfortable. It's this compassion and respect for their need for security that opens the door to transcending avoidance and moving toward genuine closeness. In conclusion, we have thoroughly deconstructed the interest trap and the avoidant push-pull cycle, from artificial scarcity, bait, and hooks, to dopamine addiction, and finally, how to reclaim power and establish healthy boundaries. More importantly, you now understand that these tactics do not reflect your worth, but are merely their survival responses to intimacy. Armed with scientific insights and practical tools, you can exit the emotional labyrinth, protect your dignity, and build relationships grounded in transparency, consistency, and respect. Choose love in a way that leaves you feeling free and strong, because true love is where you find yourself, not where you lose yourself.